Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
All right, well, I'm very excited today for this episode of Discovered Wordsmiths because I have Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You got that. That's amazing. You know why I usually lop Lefebvre off when I write my fiction stuff.
Right. Well, I had to go listen to everybody else's podcast that you've been on to make sure I pronounced it correctly, using one of those like programs. But a lot of people listening probably already know who you are, but tell us a little bit about you outside of the whole publishing writing industry.
Yeah, so I'm a book nerd through and through, right? I grew up reading Spider-Man comic books, if that's not obvious from what I'm wearing, and just reading in general. I just loved books. I was an only child. I spent a lot of time in my imagination making up stories, and I loved reading books, reading comics, and still do to this day. And I always knew I wanted to be a writer. So that was a passion I had from my early teens. I got my first rejection at the age of 15. Actually, my first rejection quite earlier in my emotional personal life, but my first rejection from a publisher at the age of 15. And the other things about me that are, and he's not visible, he's just on the other side of the camera, but I have a life-size skeleton named Barnaby Bones, who accompanies me to book events because I write, you can see some of the skulls behind me. I do write about the macabre. I'm a purveyor of craft beer. I love craft beer. So when I travel, that's one of the first places I'll go to visit is a local brewery. And I'm also a purveyor of dad jokes. Eye-rolling jokes are my specialty, of course.
Well, we got a lot in common. Besides no hair,
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Well, just hair on the chin, right?
Right. Too bad you didn't make it to Jay and Zach's career author down in Tennessee because they had Granite City beer there, and it was one of the best lagers I've had in a very long time. I had to get a growler and take it home.
I would have had a chance to hang out with you had I made it. Now I was supposed to be there, but it was kind of funny because the issues with coming back from the States usually meant having to quarantine for 14 days. And I had a personal event I didn't want to miss with some seniors who's were a little bit more at risk, and I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize being able to see them.
Well,
so
we had
that
Kevin,
was it. Yeah.
So that was good.
Next time, I can't wait to check out Granite Beer and buy you one.
Oh, that'd be perfect. The Bach was really good. Also, I took some of both. So yeah, really good.
Excellent.
And my family loves my dad jokes also. My 14-year-old has been telling some now, so that's good.
Excellent. Well, you and I can get back to having beer and telling dad jokes when we see each other in person.
I will write some down so I'm ready. So I got one other question for you. What's your favorite Rush song?
Oh my God, that is a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is a tough one. I mean, all of them.
Right.
I probably have to go back to Time Stands Still, which is one of them. No, see, then I want to go to Limelight. Then I want to go to, well, if I go with a long song like the first side of 2112, there's so much goodness in that one song is probably my favorite. But you know what? Ask me every 15 minutes, I'll change what my favorite song is.
Well,
the last one I listened to.
Hold Your Fire was the first rock concert I ever went to for my 16th birthday. It was on my birthday. And so Hold Your Fire awesome. And Time Stands Still, some of my favorites. There was an Ice
Marathon
Storm.
is off of that album too, isn't it?
No, that's Power Windows.
Power Windows, that's right. That's Marathon.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. My first album was Roll the Bones. Not first album, but the first concert I went to was Roll the Bones.
I went to that one too. But my favorite song is Red Barchetta. I don't know why, but it just is.
Oh, now you ever drive in the car with your son and crank that tune and just go down some old country roads?
Yeah, that's all we have around here is old country roads. So, yeah, my son loves classic rock. So Rush is one of his
Oh,
favorites, and Def Leppard, those are two of his favorites. So Zeppelin, Beatles
excellent.
are
Sign
his
of a
number
good
one
father, that
band.
right there.
Raised him well. um, all right, so Mark, you said you've written your whole life, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things you're involved with publishing wise later. But your books, that you've been writing, your series, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the most recent series of books that I've just really been focusing on the last few years is my Canadian werewolf novels. It started off, the very first novel was A Canadian Werewolf in New York, and it's urban fantasy action adventure with some obvious humor, if it's not evident in the title, humor thrown in. And then I followed that up with a novella called Stowaway. It's a play on Stowe, Vermont, where he's trapped on a train and he's going to turn into a wolf before he gets to his destination. Wolves on a train, maybe. And then I did Fear and Longing in Los Angeles was the next full length novel in the series, book 3, and I'm just following that up with it's coming out in December 2021, Fright Night's Big City. So if you haven't guessed, I love playing off of somewhat familiar titles that people go, wait a second, isn't that the name of? No, it's not. It's a slightly altered name of a movie you might be familiar with, or a book, or something like that.
Right. So, why horror? What made you want to write horror?
I mean, I'm still afraid of the monster under my bed, and I always have been. I've always been fascinated by the unknown, the what ifs, the what's hiding in the dark, and so a lot of my writing has always explored that sort of that speculative fiction what if. And so the story is either going to be, what if, vampires were real, or what if monsters did live in the sewer, or whatever the thing is. In the case of this particular series, the Canadian Werewolf series, is what if there was a polite beta human Canadian living in one of the world's largest cities in New York, who was an alpha wolf. He turned into an actual wolf for 10 days during the light of a full moon, and has no control over his wolf side, but also has side effects as a human that give him extra powers. So what would it be like trying to live a normal life with this issue that you're trying to deal with? Which is how
Right.
the whole series came about. For example, when I was in New York, walking near Battery Park, and I wondered what it might be like to wake up naked in a park like that with no memory of the night before, and maybe the taste of blood in your mouth, and go, what's going on? What did I do? How did I get here? And hey, how am I going to get home like this? So that's where sort of the dark humor comes in, and I think in a lot of horror, at least the horror that I enjoy, you can't help but involve a little bit of humor, because it's, that whistling past the graveyard kind of thing is like, well, I'm scared. I'm either going to poop my pants or I'm going to try to distract myself
Right.
from the weird things that I just can't understand going around me. And I always find that the juxtaposition of humor and horror can play really well with one another.
Yeah. Agreed. And then it goes to the, well, I'm not running because I'm scared. I'm running because I really want to exercise.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not scared at all. I'm in really good shape. Look at how fast I am.
Right. Yeah. So, what other writers out there, what other books would you say are similar to yours?
I think so with the Canadian Werewolf series, and I've only actually read part of one of his books, but I do have a plan to get through more of them. Jim Butcher. A lot of people have
Yeah.
compared
Okay.
sort of the humor that I write and the urban fantasy often to Jim Butcher. I would say I think fans of Kelly Armstrong. She's a Canadian horror author. She has the Women of the Otherworld series, and I think part of part of the wolf nature that I use in Michael Andrews, my character, I was inspired when I read Bitten by Kelly Armstrong, where these are werewolves who actually turn into full sized wolves. Now they have their human consciousness, whereas Michael doesn't. He's more like oh no, I'm going to turn into the monster, and who knows what's going to happen when I'm the other. So Kelly Armstrong, Jim Butcher, and I think Stan Lee, only because almost everything I write almost everything I write goes back to growing up on Spider-Man comics and just loving that, the stories that Stan Lee came up with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, even part of the character of Michael Andrews is partially inspired by that thing that drives Peter Parker, but also the Incredible Hulk, where, like there's the man and then the beast, and the two of them are always at
Right.
odds with one another, and you're kind of like, well, where did he leave me now? And then similarly, of course, characters like Daredevil or Wolverine, who have these extrasensory abilities to, hear someone's heartbeat or smell when they're telling a lie, that kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of my writing, a lot of my inspiration comes from the influence of probably Stan Lee, probably one of my favorite writers of all time.
Internalize it. I agree. So I got more questions on your book, but what did you think of the new Spider-Man trailer for the new movie?
Oh my God. My son and I are just hanging on every trailer. I'm so excited at the possibility of the multiverse because I did love the into the Spider-Verse cartoon.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliantly done. I love the way they did that. And I'm so
Yeah.
curious to see the characters from the different Spider-Man universes come together. I think that could be done.
Agreed.
I don't know. I'm probably getting my hopes up too much.
Well, I'm excited because just based on the trailer, I'm like, this movie seems like classic 70s Spider-Man. Peter makes a mistake and then he takes
Yeah.
all the responsibility and tries to save everybody, but it doesn't go good. It's Peter. That's just how his life is. And then the
Yeah, that's
whole
true. Yeah.
yeah, the whole thing with Mary Jane and off the bridge is like, oh, Gwen Stacy again, but it's his hand instead of a spider web. So is it going to come out better? So yeah, I'm excited for it. It's right on my birthday again.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That
Yeah,
is so exciting when I remember, yeah, the one movie launched on my birthday the one year, and I was so thrilled to be there the night of.
yeah, we're thinking of renting a whole theater, inviting all my friends and everything. That they do that now, so
It's
it's
a great
cool.
idea.
So,
Yeah.
all right, back to the books. So you've got this horror series. Is it the same characters throughout, or are they different stories?
It is. It follows the main character, Michael Andrews, who is my Canadian werewolf, and it's actually told in first person from his point of view. And so there are some snippets and scenes, interludes that appear in some of the books that are interludes told from the perspective of the wolf, his wolf self, who doesn't know he's a human. He just has these flashes of memory. And so it follows Michael. It follows his dear good friend Gail, who he was once lovers with, and he wants to be back with her, but she doesn't. And so they've got this interesting sort of relationship where they do love each other, but they're not together. They're just there as friends. And there's a few other characters. It's all almost like my J. Jonah Jameson kind of character is Michael is a writer, and it's his agent, Mac Halpin, or Mac the Knife Halpin, who is just a crude, rough, treats Michael like hell, but is an amazing agent who gets him deals like you wouldn't believe. So a lot of people just love Mac, love his sarcasm, and he's constantly putting Michael down. And Michael will take anything because he is a beta human, right? He's just a pushover, polite Canadian
Okay.
who happens to get into scuffles and fight bad guys. And then Buddy is another recurring character who is a traveling salesman who happened to be there the night Michael was first attacked on his hitchhike into New York. When he got attacked by a wolf, the car comes around the corner just in the nick of time, so the wolf takes off. Michael doesn't realize he's been inflicted or infected with the wolf curse. Buddy, bumbling traveling salesman who just verbal diarrhea. The guy does not shut up. He loves the sound of his own voice, but he's also a really fatherly figure, and he's filled with trivia. And he becomes a mentor to Michael, and he shows up from time to time because he's constantly coming through New York, and he always seems to show up at the most opportune times, and helps Michael out because he knows a little bit of everything and is not afraid to tell everyone what he knows. So those are some of the recurring characters that have come back in several of the books.
Nice. Okay. And what other, do you have other horror series, other books out?
I have a few other standalone. I have I Death, which is a standalone novel, and I do have plans to write further books in that series. I have written a novella in that series. I have another complete thriller, just sort of near real time science fiction thriller or techno thriller maybe, called Evasion, and I have mapped out or planned two other books in that series, but lately the Canadian Werewolf series has taken over a lot of my attention. The only other thing is most of the horror I've written, the majority of the horror I've written, are dozens and dozens of short horror stories that appear in numerous short story collections that I have. Nocturnal Screams being one of them, and that's where I can explore. I think with horror, I have a lot of fun exploring something in a short window, like maybe 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 words.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And again, when you're writing a short story, the good guys don't have to win, right? Evil can you can experiment. You can have
Right.
a lot more fun. But the trope of wow, I'm going to spend a full 300 pages with these characters. The good guys better win. Good better triumph over evil. But in a short story, anything goes, right? So all bets are off. And I kind of love that. The fact that you can twist things with the reader and play with them, and who cares if they're not going to be as mad because it was only 3,000 words that they spent with you,
Right.
not 80,000.
Right. Now, I was going to ask you, because you mentioned several different books, kind of different genres, similar, close. And I know that's one of the things everyone's, oh, if you're going to write a werewolf horror novel, everything you write has to be werewolf horror. But I've never agreed with that. Do you find that people are distracted, or they like one thing and not the other? Or, how has that affected the writing?
Yeah, I mean, I also write. I haven't mentioned it, but I write and I would work with a traditional publisher for these ones.
Oh, that was
Non
going to be my next question.
Yeah, I've got true ghost story books like Haunted Hamilton, Haunted Hospitals, Tomes of Terror, Creepy Capital, Macabre Montreal, and these are ghost stories of locations, like true ghost stories or tales told as true, depending on your level of
Right.
believer. And and I did find that I do get some crossover. People who read the true ghost stories will go, "Oh, dude writes fiction. I like his stuff. Maybe I'll write it." Or people who've read my fiction go, "I love creepy stuff. Why don't I read your Haunted Hospitals book?" So I do get some crossover, but the reality is, if I was doing this smart, I probably would have honed in and just written one type of thing and just gone with it. For example, when I wrote Canadian Werewolf in New York, it was supposed to be a standalone novel. But I had so many readers say, I want to see what happens with Michael and Gail next. Like, because they wanted them to get together. I want to see what's the next thing. And I was like, well, I don't have a thing until there was an anthology I was writing a story for. It was called Monster Road Trip. And I'm like, what if Michael got stuck on a train on the way to Vermont? Okay, perfect. This is great. I can write a story. And then that, even
Nice.
the editors, like, they said, you're not going to be able to keep this under 10,000 words. And I think it hit 24,000 words in the
Oof.
first draft before I cut it down again. But that came out of demand from readers who wanted more. I think the challenge with me is if I'd been smart, I would have stuck to one thing and just written in a series. But I followed what I wanted to write. I followed my passion. I followed the inspiration, which I recommend writers. Yeah, you got to write what you want. It's important to write what you want, and that's been important to me. But if you can write what you want and try to not be all over the map, that's probably going to make life so much easier for you. Whereas with my own writing, I mean, people either hate my writing, and plenty of people do. I mean, like the reality is horror is not everyone's cup of tea, and I get that. But there are some people who will pick up one of my things, and if they're with me, if they like the style and the way that I tell a story, they're willing to come with me, into horror. They're willing to come with me into thriller. They're willing to come with me into urban fantasy and all the weird places that I take them. So, in the long run, I know it'll all work out, and in the long run, I'm enjoying the ride. And hopefully, the right readers will just pick up the pieces that work for them.
And
And that's it's sort of it's a weird place to be, knowing that I should be doing it a certain way, but then going, yeah, but this is more fun.
I agree. I'm kind of that way of thinking also. But it does sound like you're following the right to market, because people said, "Hey, we like this," so you've written more. So you kind of that line, depending on.
Yeah, I don't think I'm smart enough to write to market.
Well,
But I
but you
am
did
writing.
because people said we liked it, so you wrote
Yeah,
more.
but well, instead of analyzing the market and saying this sells well, I'm going to write it. What I did is went, oh, readers really love this, and they want more. Well, who am I to not give it to them?
Right.
Who am I to say, okay, let's give you more? Well, for example, I am working on a novella in the series that's going to be completely sort of separate from this. Because in A Canadian Werewolf in New York, you find out that Michael's ex-girlfriend, Gail, comes back into his life after this really amazing relationship they had that was short-lived, where he had to deceive her, the fact that he was a wolf. And she knew he was lying, and of course there was misunderstanding, and so they broke up. And then she comes back because she needs his help years later. But I never told the story, the actual story of their relationship. And enough of my readers really want that story because they really love that
Nice.
dynamic between these two characters, and they want to see them as lovers. So to satisfy them, I'm co-authoring a book with a friend of mine, Julie Strauss, who is a brilliant romance writer. Because I tried to write it and I couldn't. I just can't write romance. I like to read it. I enjoy it. Not good at it. So we're writing the backstory of the meet cute between Michael and Gail that takes place years before the first book happens.
Nice.
And that's solely, I don't expect people reading the whole series to want it, but I do expect that percentage of my readers who love the relationship and want to see, well, how did they get together? What was it like when they were a couple? And we don't even get to the breakup. We just get to the, here's how they met and fell in love. Bam. End of story. Happy ending. If you want to read that as a romance, as a complete standalone, knock yourself out. Have a good time. In the meantime, we got these adventures to have over here.
Right. And that also goes back to a lot of people have an idea. Oh, I got this werewolf in New York idea, Canadian, blah. But that's not a story. And once you develop characters and setting, stories seem to flow. I mean, I started with one idea and I've got 7 books now in the idea. So the stories can come out from that.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And sometimes they come out in ways you didn't expect. Like that werewolf story was supposed to be a 10,000 word story of how does he get home? How does he find clothes? How does he get home? What are the misadventures he has on the way? And it ends until a good friend of mine read it and went, that's great. What happens next? And I go, nothing. It's over. He made it. He made it to his appointment. He goes, yeah, but what about the rest of his day? And he kept bugging me. And it was him bugging me that went, well, I could see what happens next. And that's when Gail shows up, like this character that wasn't even in my mind
Nice.
until he's like, well, what's next? Well, okay, someone from his past shows up. Says, I know you're a werewolf. I figured it out and I need your help. That kind of thing. So, yeah, I love the fact that ideas can come from anywhere. And some of the ideas you put them on the back burner. Some of them will come back in another story. Other ones will just die as a slow death while you work on other things, while you attend to the things on the front burner.
Right. So did you say that this is more traditionally published than some of your other books?
Oh, no. Canadian Werewolf in New York was originally, the first story was written for a traditional market for an anthology.
Okay.
Called The Beast Within, and I never sold it. So then I thought, well, I should do something with the story, but it was long. It was like 10,000 words, and most markets were only accepting 6,000 words. So that's when I ended up turning that into the Canadian Werewolf in New York novel. Those are all self-published. It is I have a series with Dundurn, Canada's largest independent publisher, series of 6 books, and not series, they are all standalones, but they're all about paranormal. They're all true paranormal, location-based books, and those were traditionally published, along with a few. Like I think I Death was traditionally published with a small publisher, and several of the anthologies I've edited have also been traditionally published as well.
Got it. Well, because I was going to mention to you, if you're looking for a place to publish, a couple good ones I've heard of. There's Kobo up in Canada, but then there's Drafted Digital in America. Just if you've never heard of them.
No, I've never heard of the Kobo.
Right? Yeah.
Kobo. What's that? Is that some Japanese word?
Yeah, I think it is. Canadians, they think of the weirdest things. So what's been you said the feedback's been really good for these books, that helped you think of the next ones to write. What do you think drives that makes it such good feedback?
Um, I think people resonate with Michael Andrews. They resonate with the sort of everyman who is, like me. I'm actually quite shy and I'm an introvert, but I'm playing a role right now.
Right.
I have to be entertaining as a guest on your show, and when I'm speaking in public, I'm playing a role, so I'm just acting. But I am normally shy and reserved. I walk into a room, I go hide in the corner and just watch everyone else, and hope no one notices me. Um, and so Michael is that sort of shy and ends up finding himself, because of his extra senses and abilities, finds himself wanting to help other people. Boy Scout that he is. And I think people really, they like the two things that they appreciate about him are that he is willing to stick out his neck to help other people, which is, I think we all want to be helpful. We all want to be good and look out for other people. I think that's nobody wakes up and says, I'd like to harm people and kill people or hurt them, right? Well, hopefully people don't wake up that way.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, because he's so nervous, because he's so terrified, and again, this is based on my understanding of the teenage Peter Parker, because it all comes back to
I was
my
going to say, it
influences
sounds a
growing
lot
up,
like that.
is he cracks jokes while he's fighting the bad guys because he's scared out of his skin, and he's doing that to try to make himself feel better. He's like, well, I'm a hero, I may as well be. And because he grew up reading Spider-Man comics, well, that's what Spider-Man did. So I'm going to crack jokes, and one of the things he does a lot of is, often when you're fighting people, you don't know their names. It's not like, hey Steven, how you doing? I'm going to punch you in the face now because you're mugging someone. No, I can say that, well, Steven looks like Lex Luthor, for example. So in my head, I'm calling him Lex,
Right.
or whatever the case may be, right? Those are the things that I think are, people really enjoy that aspect of Michael, or at least the feedback. And they do love the way that he interacts with his agent. He lets his agent walk all over him, but then 10 minutes later, he's going to, not let some criminal get away with something really bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds a lot like Peter. The
Yeah.
classic, what I love about Peter
Yeah.
in there.
Wonder, gee, who influenced me when I was
Yeah,
growing up?
exactly. So, if you had a choice, would you rather see these as a movie or a set of movies or a TV show?
Um, I don't know. My partner Liz says she wants to see Canadian Werewolf turned into a graphic novel. I would love to see that
Yes,
first, I think.
absolutely.
I think TV show could be interesting, only because uh, it's episodic. Now, one of the challenges I've run into, even in writing these books, is it's the Marvel Universe dilemma of, wait a second, all these superheroes and all these bad guys live in one city, and it's maybe it's the principle that you get from the Murder She Wrote. What do you mean, the small village? There's a murder every week,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's a certain conceit in that, and so that's why I even in the second full length novel, the third book in the series, I have him going to LA, because I was like, well, I can't have all the bad guys in New York all the time. I can't
Right.
have, he's the only paranormal creature, allegedly, right? I mean, or they're very few. He does encounter a wolf in the first novel, and it's the only other paranormal creature he's encountered. So suddenly I have these bad guys, the PFA, the Proud Fighters for America, who are a neo-Nazi group that, very much like Hitler was trying to do, worked in the black arts and the occult and tried to create a race of super beings, super bad guys. And so
Nice.
suddenly there's a bunch of super powered villains coming after him. But I'm very worried about just having the whole universe become paranormal, right? Because the whole idea is it's a secret identity. He doesn't want people to know. Because again, if you get captured, the FBI is going to lock him up and study him and prod him and try and figure things out. So he
Like
doesn't want
ET.
people to know, right? Because that's the reality of what would happen
Right.
if people find out you have these abilities. So he keeps that a secret. And so therefore, even having super powered bad guys, I'm now running into, especially in Fright Night's Big City, where they realize these super powered beings are stalking the night, and there's like vampires attacking and Sasquatch creatures in New York and all kinds of weird crap that's scaring the bejesus out of the people of New York. So it's like, what is going down? Is like hell has opened up and all these creatures are suddenly showing up. I worry about that because it's like, no, I just want him to be a guy with these little episodic adventures, fighting muggers and getting cats out of trees.
Classic comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges I run into as well. So I think that could work in a TV series maybe, but then I worry about the, oh no, another superpowered bad guy shows up out of the blue.
Right. Yep. Let me ask you this. You love books. You got a bunch of books behind you. What are some of your favorite books besides Spider-Man and Stan Lee?
Yeah, of course. Honestly, I've always said, so three of my favorite novels. Three of my favorite novels of all time are John Irving, A Prayer for Owen Meany.
Okay.
Beautifully powerful book. I am a more literary title, but John Irving, some humor in there. Some amazing humor in it. Not necessarily in that one as much as some of his others, but that's one of my favorite books of all time. The classic science fiction pandemic tale that was originally written in the 50s by George R. Stewart, Earth Abides, which I have read numerous times and have read since the start of this pandemic, which is not a good idea. I love that story. I remember discovering it when I was a kid. And I have to say, Different Seasons by Stephen King. That was the very first, The Body, which Stand By Me was based on. I'd never read a Stephen King book until I saw the movie Stand By Me as a young person and went, oh wow, that was written by Stephen King. I got to read that story. So I picked up Different Seasons. I got The Body. I read all the other ones. Like, they're so amazing. Like, every single novella in that collection is phenomenal. But I will pick up and read any new book by Michael Connelly. I just got his new one that just came out, The Dark Hours, on site. I'll read anything by Michael Connelly. A good friend of mine, Canadian science fiction writer Robert J. Sawyer, love his books. Canadian humorist Terry Fallis. Again, he hasn't written a book I haven't loved. So, I mean, I read across. I probably have. I have a book on the go on my Kobo at any given time. I have another book on the go on Audible on any given time. Another book on the go on Kobo Audio app on my phone, and then usually at least two different print books on the go.
Yeah.
One's in the bathroom, the other one's usually in my laptop bag. So I usually have about 4 or 5 different books on the go at any given time. I'm constantly reading.
Yeah. Same way. I found that I was reading like Asimov and Robert Parker Spencer novel, like at the same time.
Oh my
Like,
God! But two classic.
I know,
Yeah.
but they're so opposite. And going back and forth, I was kind of like, okay, I need to concentrate on Asimov for a while because it takes a little more to get in
Yeah.
here.
But Parker is just so tight, right? And
Yeah.
just, yeah, amazing. Yeah.
So, do you have any favorite bookstores besides an obvious online one?
Yeah. My favorite. So I love when I travel. I love to go to craft breweries, and I love to go to local independent bookstores. I just love seeing the differences and the flavors and the nuances. We have a great independent bookstore here in Waterloo, Ontario, called Wordsworth Books,
Okay.
which is amazing. Love the folks there. I love going in there. Since the pandemic, I haven't gotten out as much now that they're open to the public again, but to do my online orders and pick them up at the back door in the delivery that they've provided. But I do love just going and exploring bookstores. I mean, one of the things I'll do when I go to a local bookstore in a new town I haven't been to is I'll go to the occult and paranormal section, where I'll probably buy a book about local ghosts because I'm constantly doing research, right? I've got 3 different books on the paranormal true ghost stories, and some of them are based on, hey, I was local in this town. Okay, some stories of ghosts. Okay, I can use that as research. So yeah, I think my favorite bookstore is that next bookstore that I get a chance to go and explore, because that to me, just like discovering new beer, there's always wonders. Because when you talk to a bookseller, like they've got stories, they've got their favorites, and I just love, like, the bartender. What's your favorite? What's your favorite drink here? Or a bookseller. What's the last great book that you finished reading? They're most of them who are passionate about it are just so eager to chat with you about it, and that gets me going.
Agreed. My kids and I, whenever we'd go on vacation, we'd always find one bookstore wherever we're at, and always go to a bookstore.
And I can't help tidying because I've been a bookseller most of my life. So I can't. When I go into a bookstore, people often think I work there because I'm tidying the shelves. And I can't. It's like, look, this is out of alphabetical order. And they're like the book stacks. You're like, no, that's better.
People start asking them, so anyone, what's a good book? And you interrupt. Oh, I could tell you over here. And then suddenly you're.
Yeah. Well, what was the last great book you read? What did you like about it? Okay, right. I got something for you. I mean, come on. I that's in my blood. I can't help it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, where can they tell us again the name of the books, where they can find it, and then one last thing: why should they get your book?
Okay, so you can find anything you want about me at markleslie.ca because I am Canadian. You can just find on any online bookstore. Just search for Canadian Werewolf, Mark Leslie, and you'll find them. Well, I'm going to do a caveat to the question. Why should they read it? If they enjoy action-adventure tales about a pushover Canadian everyman who is a beta human but alpha wolf and want to see how he deals with these extraordinary circumstances, if they think that would be enjoyable, if they like some action, if they like some humor, if they're not afraid of a few adult language words in their books, because I'm sorry, bad guys occasionally when they're killing people, they swear. It happens. I've seen it. I've seen it in my books mostly. But if that's your cup of tea, then definitely check them out. If they're not, let me know what you like, and I'll try and recommend something else that's going to be much better for you.
Oh, what a great service. If you don't like my book, let me know. I'll tell you something else.
Yeah, I'd rather they pick up a book that they love. Like, no, I really like this kind of book. Okay, then you got to check out this one here.
Right.
Don't read my stuff. I would rather they pick up a book they really love than pick up my book and go, eh.
I agree. I just read. That's, super important for everybody. Mark, thank you for telling us about your books. Don't go away because we have some author talk, which I think you might have some good information on. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.